change analysis was used to identify changes in brightness that occur between dates that could be related to on-ground practices. So where you had negative change, this could be related to a change in land cover, which might be associated with deforestation or clearing of some areas, and the positive change, which might be related to normal vegetation growth or perhaps regrowth in some areas that had been felled. And basically using that change information, we relabeled or recoded the segments where that change had occurred to then produce subsequent land cover maps for the rest of the time series. So just an example here of the annual land cover mapping and some of the change analysis. So this is a full ALS pulsar scene for 2007, which will fade into the 2008 image. We'll then fade into the change detection results, identifying both a negative change where there's deforestation has occurred, a positive change associated with normal growth or regeneration. That will fade into the land cover map, so we basically masked the 2007 land cover map using the results of the change to produce the land cover map for 2008, and then merge the land cover classes to produce the forest-non-forest map. And the example on the left there, just showing the change analysis between 2008 and 2009. So you can see the change there has been mapped in increments of 1 dB, and it's really the change that is occurring in the maximum change classes that really reflect what's happening on the ground. Some more change mapping examples here and how they're actually manifested in the pulsar imagery. So firstly, an image on the left there from 2007 has a this first image, here's an area of pine plantation. So the really bright, highly textured area is a mature pine plantation. Adjacent to that is an area that has previously been cleared. So I'll scroll through the animation here. So 2007 fading through to 2008. You see further evidence of clearing, which shows up in the negative change class there. And then as we scroll through 2008 through to 2009, again, we see further evidence of clearing throughout that area, but also regeneration in the adjacent zone. So deforestation showing up in the maximum negative change class, whereas positive change reflecting regeneration in those plantation areas. The area on the bottom is a clear feral eucalypt plantation. So here's just the natural forest in the green tones, areas of plantation shown in the purple areas. And in some cases you can actually see the row structures where they've clear felled and they've piled up the debris on either side. So if you scroll through the animation, 2007 through to 2008, we see another area of clearing just in here, whereas these areas are starting to regenerate. So we're seeing some positive change and some negative change. 2008 through to 2009. Again, we're seeing further regeneration in some of these previously cleared areas and some clearing along this side. So these are the types of forest information products that we're generating for Tasmania as part of the GeoFCT task. So we have a full time series from 2007 through to 2010, and illustrated here are just the images for 2008. And the area used in the pilot study just outlined there in the blue square. Forest at the moment is just one large superclass. We haven't looked at the capacity to discriminate between different communities, but it's something that we'd like to look at. So our second approach used the support vector machine, which solves for the optimal decision hyperplane based on a trained set of input parameters. Seems to work best in multi or hyperdimensional space to maximize the separation between the cover types of interest. So you can use any number of input layers for the parameterization, and certainly any type of data, and basically reduces the classification problem to the generation of correct training data. So where you have perhaps sparse or limited training, then the results would perhaps not be so reliable. In our case for parameterization, we could change the kernel function and also the penalty value, which allows for some misclassification error. So basically using soft margins. And then using cross-validation techniques, you find the best parameters to then train the model, and then apply this to the entire image. So to implement it, in order to select our training data, we basically took the TAS veg layer and an existing forest-non-forest map and merged these established a rule that said where greater than 95% of those pixels were of the same class in both layers, that was adequate to use as training. We took about 10% of those segments, split those 70-30 to provide the training and testing data, and then used the feature extraction on the segmented data. So we looked at spectral information, the spatial information, looking at the DM, we brought in the topographic data. Also texture measures after Haralick, the grey level occurrence measures, and also looked at some of the polarimetric information using decomposition techniques. And we used the freeware libSVM toolset, which is available online. Just some illustrations there of some of the features that we used. So it was useful to use the topographic information to separate some of the classes, and certainly the texture features tick a contrast between the forest and non-forest areas. Just running out of time, so I'm running through a bit quickly here, but a bit of a comparison here just between the initial results. So both provide a similar total estimate of the forest cover, so around 83% as compared to the reference layer at 84%. But there were subtle localized differences in the spatial distribution of forest cover between the classifications. This was largely due to the differential capacity to discriminate between bare or cleared areas of plantation considered non-forest and those regenerating and mature plantation areas considered as forest. But overall, we're seeing quite high mapping accuracies for forest, non-forest. So the decision tree approach, the accuracy is estimated at 96%, whereas SVM, 98%. The last step is then, of course, to apply that wall-to-wall across the full mosaic by training on biogeographic regions. Basically we decided that the SVM would form part of could form part of an operational monitoring system due to the efficiency and the accuracy of the approach. Thank you very much.
Anybody has a question? Please.
Okay, thank you very much for very good presentations. In my lab also have some students, they study about the applications of Bansa data for forest mappings. But they always miss problem in the mountain area, about the slope area. The backscatter from Bansa is affected so much by different slope. So did you miss that problem and how to solve it?
That's definitely a problem in the steep topography, which we experienced as well in Tasmania. For the most part it is flat, but there certainly are some steeper areas. So we used a procedure that based on the cosine correction of the surface tilt angles, and that effectively corrects, it takes out a lot of the terrain information.
It's correct after make the calibration. It's correct or not?
I guess it's hard to validate that sort of thing. As long as you can smooth out, I think, the backscatter response on the forward and backward facing slopes, then you just do the best job that you can.
For forest classification, you use some very relevant forest topics.
Yes.
I would like to know the size of the window, how big, and also the offset. What offset do you use? 1 pixel and direction? You use just only one direction, or how many directions you use?
Essentially, we use the full directional information and over a 3x3 window size. So we basically took all the input layers, threw that into the classification. So we had a total of, I think, maybe 34 layers that actually went into the classification. And then six or seven of those, I think, were related to the texture information.
And all this kind of algorithm you implement in the definite software?
Just for the first approach, so the one using the decision tree, we did the segmentation and the classification using Definiens. But the second approach only did the segmentation in Definiens and then used that information with the libSVM toolset to run the SVM classification. So it's, just the two methods there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to know about deforestation. if some area having like very recent deforestation and the stems of the cut down trees is over there, so did you find any changes in the backscatter of HB in that area? Like because the stem remains there, then it also causes the high backscatter for HB.
Yes.
So in your study, did you find some sustainable?
Yes, that was probably one of the main problems that we faced with the pulsar. So because you are getting some HB backscatter from some of those areas that had been logged, and as you said, there's a lot of debris on the ground which is inducing the backscatter response, so elevating the backscatter. So we found it was there was some confusion. There was some confusion to discriminate those areas versus other areas of mature plantation. So that was a problem, and at the moment we don't have a solution. But we think probably using optical data, a combination of optical and SAR, might reduce that problem, because it seems to identify the cleared areas a lot better.
Thank you for the excellent results. My question is related to classification result. You reported that 98% accuracy in SBM methods. Could you explain me that the reference map you consider for accuracy analysis? Because you said that it's a pixel by pixel check. And then what is the pixel size?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
The question is related to SBM. The accuracy you achieve is 98%, right?
Yes.
Yes. So my question is, what kind of reference map you check? Because you said it's a pixel by pixel.
Yes, so yeah, just using the TASVEG product, which is available statewide vegetation mapping for the area. So we took the classes of that and merged them to produce a forest non-forest map. It's not the most recent product, and certainly for areas of plantation, but we used it because it's the only statewide, it provides statewide coverage. So we use that. We do also have some access to some field survey data. So we went out to the field in 2010, collected a number of georeference points for different cover types. We included that in the accuracy assessment as well.
So that data is available in vector format or raster format?
It's available in vector format.
So what is pixel size? Did you consider when you checking pixel by pixel?
Essentially, we reduced that to a 12.5 megapixel size.
Yeah, exactly with the pulsar.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Quick questions about the season problem. Season, did you consider the impact of season because you're doing the change detection? Season.
I guess we were limited to the data set that we had available. So for our pulsar data collection, it was all acquired between was June to October timeframe. So that was our restriction. We had no other option. It's just when the FBD data was collected over that particular region. So yeah, I guess not.
I have 2 more questions. First, did you try to use other pulsars to estimate timber volume? It's possible. Estimation. And second, you use the region growing algorithm. And can you talk a little bit about what criteria for region growing?
Yeah, sure. So as for the sorry, your first question, probably the timber volume. That's not something we've looked at as yet, but we would like to. So that's sort of the follow-on part to this project, something we'll look at early next year, and perhaps in conjunction with LiDAR data. We have access to LiDAR over scattered regions in the northeast part of Tasmania. So probably a combination of LiDAR and the radar. We have to look at extracting biomass and volume. The second part for the region growing, basically again with reliance on the reference data. That's how we selected, I guess, the training samples to use for the region growing. So it was literally just a visual comparison with the reference data to identify a number of points to use as the seed points. And then again it was a visual comparison of thresholds as to what was the best threshold to then relax the region growing to grow out for a particular cover type. So it was quite a manual approach, which was the main problem with the study. Very, I guess, subjective. A different user might come up with a different threshold. So that's why we decided the SBM approach was perhaps more efficient, lead to a more optimal classification.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And now let's welcome